Gravitas, co-presented by Skoda Superb, best in next class. Co-powered by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist.
Two months back, a petition was filed in the Supreme Court of India, a plea to ban halal meat. The court rejected it. Now, Europe's top court has legislated on the same matter. It has upheld a ban on halal and kosher meat. The reason being given is this, that animals are slaughtered while they are conscious, and that is cruel. So they must be stunned before slaughter. The order has sparked a religious debate. Jews say Europe is hurting its minorities. Muslims challenge this law in the first place. The clash is not new, by the way. From banning hijabs to mandating pork in school lunch to a referendum on banning circumcision, European laws have clashed with the practices of minorities for a while now. Tonight on Gravitas, we tell you why this exposes Europe's xenophobia and confusion. This continent likes to preach the world about inclusion and multiculturalism, but does not practice the same in its laws. We'll discuss. Also on the show, after a week in captivity, 344 school students abducted by Boko Haram in Nigeria have been released. Did the government pay a ransom? We'll bring you a ground report. The biggest cyber attack on the US government, America's nuclear weapons agency, was hacked. For months, the attackers had access to top government documents and emails. There's no telling how much damage has been done. A week after India's army chief visited the Gulf, Pakistan's foreign minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi lands in the UAE. He says India is planning another surgical strike on Pakistan. And why is Cheteshwar Pujara being called Steve? A special report on what's being called the institutionalized racism in Australian cricket. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has received the coronavirus vaccine in an on-camera event that the Trump administration says is part of federal efforts to build confidence among the public in the vaccine's safety and efficacy.
I especially want to thank the fine medical team at Walter Reed Hospital that administered our vaccine today.
Pence thanked the Corona Task Force and said it's important that Americans stay vigilant and maintain social distancing.
India is planning a surgical strike against Pakistan.
Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has raised a hoax of false flag operation, claiming that India is planning to launch a surgical strike on the country. Qureshi made the claim at a press conference he addressed in Abu Dhabi while on an official visit to the United Arab Emirates. Qureshi also said that India was trying to seek tacit approval for the move from its partners. Amid rising violence in Afghanistan, U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman met with the Taliban. The top U.S. general held unannounced talks with Taliban peace negotiators in Doha to urge a reduction in violence across Afghanistan. He then flew to Kabul to discuss the peace process with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. The meet comes as senior American officials in Kabul warned that stepped-up Taliban attacks endanger the peace negotiations with the Afghan government. Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba has reacted to the report, claiming its facial recognition technology is being used as a surveillance tool against minority Uyghur Muslims. In a statement, the company has said that it was dismayed that Alibaba Cloud developed facial recognition technology that includes ethnicity as an attribute, and that the firm never intended the technology to be used in this manner. The statement also said that Alibaba has eliminated the ethnic tag in their product. Satellite photos obtained on Friday by the Associated Press show that Iran has begun construction on a site at its underground nuclear facility at Fordo amid tensions with the United States over its atomic program. While the purpose of the building remains unclear, any work at Fordo likely will trigger new international concerns. Denmark has strengthened rape laws and outlawed sex without explicit consent. The Danish parliament has approved a reform that gives new power to the word no. Under the old legislation, prosecutors had to show the rapist had used violence or attacked someone who was unable to resist. Sex without consent is rape, but the principle is lacking in many legal frameworks in countries across Europe. Switzerland's parliament has approved a bill allowing same-sex couples to marry, bringing it par with most other European nations with regards to gay rights. Switzerland till now is one of few European countries where same-sex marriage is not legal. The law has been ratified by the parliament after several rounds of debate, which started in 2013. A winter storm piled record-breaking amounts of snow onto parts of the United States northeast on Thursday and wreaked havoc throughout the region, killing at least 4 people in traffic crashes and hobbling travel. Robert Lewandowski has been named FIFA's best men's player of Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo to win this honor since 2008. England's Lucy Bronze won the Women's Player of the Year award. India are on top of Australia in the Adelaide Test after a dramatic second day that witnessed the fall of 15 wickets. The Indians lost their last 4 wickets for just 11 runs to fold for 244 at the start of the day, but then bounced back brilliantly to dismiss the hosts for 191 in their first innings. Ashwin picked up 4 wickets, Umesh Yadav got 3, while Jasprit Bumrah provided the first 2 breakthroughs. The Indians were 9 for 1 at stumps with a lead of 62 runs.
Is Europe set to ban halal meat? Is it set to outlaw religious slaughter of animals? A new court order has paved the way for governments across the continent to ban halal slaughter, and the move has triggered strong reactions. Food and faith are at odds. The decision has come from the top court, the European Court of Justice. It supports the ban on halal and kosher slaughter of animals. Earlier, the rule held in some countries, now it applies across Europe. All governments across Europe are free to legislate thus. The story begins in 2017. Belgium banned halal and kosher meats. Religious groups challenged the order. They went to Europe's highest court. And now the European Court of Justice has upheld the Belgian ban. Jewish and Muslim groups have been opposing this. They say Belgium's rule is an attack on their traditions and rituals. In their plea, they urge the European Court to prioritize religious liberty. But they failed to convince the judges. The European Court is of the view that no animal should be slaughtered before being stunned. What does that even mean? Let me explain. Under halal and kosher rituals, animals are alive and healthy at the time of slaughter. Halal is the slaughter of conscious animals. The practice was widely abandoned in the 20th century, but now it is practiced in Jewish and Muslim communities. Most slaughterhouses in the world now stun the livestock first, which means knocking them into a dazed or semi-conscious state, using electric devices or gas. For years now, animal rights activists have pushed for a ban on halal and kosher. They say slaughtering animals while they're conscious is cruel. The way slaughterhouses prepare halal meat has been questioned too. I'm about to show you a video. Some viewers may find it distressing, so we advise viewer discretion. This video was published by The Guardian 5 years ago. It is from a halal slaughterhouse in the United Kingdom where sheep were kicked, hacked and thrown into solid structures. The video was recorded by a campaigning group. The pictures led to outrage. The violation of laws was clear. In 2009, the European Union made a law for the quote-unquote protection of animals at the time of killing. It says that animals must be stunned before they are killed so that they are unconscious and do not feel any pain or distress. But exceptions have been allowed for religious practice. The latest order from the European Court of Justice re-emphasizes the need for tougher laws to ensure humane treatment of animals, or so they say. The judgment says Belgium has not violated religious freedoms. Instead, the law promotes animal welfare. In fact, the judges were of the view that Belgium's law strikes a fair balance. Between animal welfare and freedom of religion. But religious groups are not convinced. The head of the European Jewish Congress said the ruling, quote-unquote, severely undermined the right to perform Jewish religious practices. And this ruling is a heavy blow, they said, to Jewish life in Europe. The European Jewish Congress has vowed to fight the court's decision. Israel has jumped in too with a statement of condemnation. The Israeli Foreign Ministry said this decision sends a signal to the Jewish community that they are not wanted in Europe and harms the freedom of worship and religion in Europe. No statement yet from the Muslim community, but it would be safe to assume that they're not happy with the verdict, considering the fact that they were the ones who challenged the law in Belgium. And now, since the ban has the support of Europe's top court, other European countries can ban halal and kosher slaughter. What about slaughter practices around the world? How many countries have banned halal? Is stunning pain-free? Is it more humane than killing animals in their conscious state? What does science say and what do activists say? Our next report has the answers.
This world has more farm animals than humans. There are at least 19 billion chickens, 1.5 billion cows, 1 billion sheep, and nearly as many pigs. The farm animals outnumbered by 3 times. This ratio is maintained for a healthy supply chain. What about the health of the animals? What happens to them between the farm and the kitchen? Are there rules regulating abattoirs and animal slaughter too? Yes, there are religion and region-specific rules. Islam mandates halal. Jews swear by kosher. And most Sikhs exercise jatka, meaning chopping off the animal's head in a single stroke. But when it comes to slaughter, the law of the land often prevails over the religious rules. Many countries have made stunning compulsory. Animals need to be rendered unconscious before they are slaughtered. Activists say stunning reduces the animal's pain. Denmark dictates that all animals must be sedated before slaughter. Iceland, Sweden, Norway, Slovenia are on the same page. But prior stunning is not allowed in halal or kosher. So Finland makes exceptions for ritual slaughters. France too gives special permission for halal. In the Netherlands, an animal must be stunned if it continues to be responsive 40 seconds after its throat is cut. Reversible stunning is mandatory in New Zealand, meaning an animal must be allowed to regain consciousness if it is not slaughtered. The United States allows halal. 15% of all meat slaughtered in the UK are halal compliant. India is the world's largest beef exporter. In October this year, India's top court dismissed a public interest litigation seeking a ban on halal slaughter. A ban on halal or kosher is not just anti-Islam or anti-Semitic. It is also anti-market. The global halal market is estimated to be worth $1.6 trillion. The global kosher beef market is expected to reach $248 billion by 2025. Did you know the Nazis prohibited slaughter without stunning or anesthesia? A law was passed on the 21st of April 1933. Was the move anti-Semitic or anti-cruelty? History may have the answer. Now the science of slaughter points at something rather interesting. It basically says whether or not you stun an animal, he or she is bound to feel the pain. For starters, stunning itself is painful. Most slaughterhouses make animals unconscious by exposing them to electric shock or firing a bolt against the animal's head. Captive bolts go wrong many times, and animals bleed to death. Chickens are mostly gassed. In short, there is no humane way to kill an animal. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
So is the ban on halal and kosher nothing but hypocrisy? Can you allow animal slaughter and legislate on minimum pain too? Is that how you define animal welfare? Does the European court order have anything to do with animal welfare? Or is it more to do with Europe's religious minorities? The continent's track record does not help it. Let's look at the religious breakup of Europe. We have some numbers for you, and these are from the Pew Research Center. They're a little old, so please account for slight variations now. Christians make up for 74.5% of Europe's population. Almost 19% Europeans say that they're not affiliated to any religion. Muslims make up 5.9% of Europe. Jews, 0.2%. Hindus, 0.2%. Buddhists, again, 0.2%. So it's safe to say that Muslims, along with Jews, make a sizable portion of Europe's minorities, religious minorities. Does Europe keep their sentiments and cultures in mind when legislating? Why are laws clashing with culture and faith? We'll begin with France, which is fighting radicalism. It has Europe's largest Muslim population. It also has a problem with Muslim practices and customs. France became the first European country to ban burqas in public spaces. That was back in 2010. France also outlawed all kinds of full face coverings, all religious symbols in public, including the cross. In 2018, the UN Human Rights Committee called the move a violation of human rights. But by then, France had gone a step further. It also banned the burkini. Women have been fined for wearing full-body swimwear in France. In 2016, a photo of male officers forcing a woman to remove her burkini went viral. In 2019, 2 swimming pools were shut down during peak summer because women wearing burkinis swam in those pools. What explains these bans? France says terrorism. Now, France has a real problem here. For years, governments in France kept appeasing minorities and allowing ghettoization. Then they started imposing random bans instead of striking at the root of the problem. You see, banning burkinis will not end radicalism. Cutting funding, calling out the source of terror will, and France has begun doing that belatedly. Vilifying veils only alienates people further. And France is not alone in doing so. In 2011, Belgium banned full-face veils. In 2016, Dutch MPs backed a ban on burqa in public spaces. Several towns in Italy have burqa bans. In Denmark, women can be fined more than 100 euros for covering their face. This is the same Europe that takes pride in preaching secularism. Do you know what secularism means? It means separating the state from religious institutions, not interfering with religious institutions and practices. And let me give you some more examples. Pork is prohibited in Islam. Many French schools have scrapped pork-free options from school canteens. So a Muslim child gets 2 options in France: eat pork or eat nothing. Jewish culture has not been spared either. Some lawmakers in Denmark wanted to ban circumcision. For those of you who are familiar with Jewish tradition, you would know that Jews circumcise baby boys on their 8th day. The ritual is called Brit Milah. Denmark wanted to ban it, it couldn't. But now Europe has posed a bigger challenge to religious minorities. The continent's top court has made provisions to ban halal and kosher meat, which practically means very soon Jews and Muslims will be left with 2 choices, just like those French school kids: eat haram or eat nothing. And for anyone who says that this is a more humane way of killing an animal, let me repeat this: slaughter cannot be humane, no matter how you try to justify it. So this is where Europe stands, at a crossroads. It put itself on a pedestal as the ideal multicultural modern secular society. Then it started preaching the world on how to treat minorities. European governments took in immigrants but did not make them a part of the mainstream. Now the divide is deepening. Europe's confusion and xenophobia is showing in its laws. And every time it is called out, it hides behind the radicalization argument. We say it's not kosher. More than 300 students that lived on the school premises have gone missing. The attackers belong to an outfit which has become synonymous with terror for the people of Nigeria, Boko Haram. This kidnapping is not an isolated incident in Nigeria. In the last 6 years, the Boko Haram has carried out more than 15 such mass-scale abductions. If this had happened to any other country, in any other part of the world, in a modern, so-called developed society, the reaction wouldn't have been what it is right now. We at WION have been reporting this story since Sunday. We've been getting you ground reports from Nigeria. We've been airing the pleas of the parents awaiting the return of their children, because this is not a crisis that can be put on the back burner and dealt with when convenient. We've been reporting on the story for a week now. Tonight, I'm happy to tell you that 344 of the kidnapped students have finally been released in Nigeria. But as Nigerians celebrate their release, there are some concerns that still need to be addressed. On what terms has the Muhammadu Buhari administration secured this release? They say not a single bullet was fired. Did the government then pay ransom money to the kidnappers, to Boko Haram jihadists? And while we try to answer this question, we must ask another one. Has the Boko Haram been able to brainwash some of these students to wage their war against Western education? Why do I say this? The answer lies in our next report.
They arrived hoarded on buses, bare feet and dressed in dusty clothes. Flecks of dried mud on their bodies. They sat in silence as Nigerian government officials, clad in white silk robes, sang praises of the rescue operation.
So I have responsibility for all the missing children. So for me, when the news was brought to me, I thank God. Because since it happened, I haven't slept. You can see my eyes. They're red all throughout.
On the 11th of December, Friday, more than 300 schoolboys were kidnapped in a raid carried out by Boko Haram insurgents. The kidnappings sparked a nationwide campaign. Parents of the abductees and Nigerian activists built pressure on the government of Muhammadu Buhari to bring back the boys. Exactly a week on, the boys have been released. The Nigerian government says not a single shot was fired, but there's absolute secrecy on the terms of their release.
Well, we are doing our best. Remember when we closed the borders? We found out that still, somehow, the terrorists or the abductors still get weapons and ammunition. They still take people hostages. They are collecting millions of naira. We have a lot of work ahead of us.
The boys will now have to undergo physical and mental examination before being reunited with their families. A very necessary procedure. In the past, there have been reports of kidnapped children being brainwashed to secretly wage the Boko Haram's war. Kids who after their release were convinced that Western education is sinful. The onus of securing their future is on the Muhammadu Buhari government. It has failed to quell the insurgency since coming to power. Katsina, where the kidnappings took place, is Buhari's home state. Boko Haram may have released the boys for now, but its fight against the westernization of Nigerian society is far from over. There's no guarantee that it won't carry out similar kidnappings of young students in the future.
What the federal government is doing is not enough. And Mr. President has failed us. Mr. President shows no sympathy over this matter. Mr. President shows no concern over this matter. Mr. President doesn't even show humanitarian feeling He doesn't have even the human feeling, the concept of human feeling, the God-fearing, the attitude of showing care and concern over these children.
Bureau Report, WION. World is one.
The United States government has suffered a major hack. 12 federal agencies and 18,000 users have been compromised in the US. We reported this last night, but the breach is far more serious than what many had imagined. The US Nuclear Weapons Agency was hacked too. You heard that right. The American Energy Department and the American National Nuclear Security Administration have been hit by a cyber attack. Why is this significant? Because these agencies maintain America's nuclear stockpile. Was America's national security compromised? Did the hackers access America's nuclear network? The US Energy Department issued a statement. It says the hack did not affect, quote unquote, mission essential national security functions. Which means America's nukes are safe, but they're also vulnerable. This cyber attack is proof it has hit the highest offices and departments in America, the US State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the Pentagon, and now the US Nuclear Weapons Agency. Hackers targeted the highest levels of American government. They were all compromised. American investigators are blaming Russia for the hack. But the bigger question is, how did hackers break the American government firewalls? The hackers made moves way back in March, we're told. It went on for months. They broke into SolarWinds. SolarWinds is a Texas-based IT management company. It serves several government offices in the US and many private companies that are on the Fortune 500 list. There was a breach at Microsoft too. Some of its products were reportedly used to attack the victims. So how did the hackers get in? They corrupted the code of the SolarWinds software. So when this company sent software updates to government systems, just like you would get on your phone or your computer a software update, you download it. 18,000 people downloaded that corrupted update, and the update exposed their systems. The breach at Microsoft is similar. It has identified 40 victims, which includes government agencies, companies, and think tanks. Nearly half of them are private technology companies. Microsoft issued a statement today, and I'm quoting, "This latest cyber assault is effectively an attack on the United States and its government and other critical institutions, including security firms." American investigators say the hackers had access to government emails and systems for months. It is not clear yet how many emails or other systems they had accessed. And this is very embarrassing for America, a country that calls itself the world leader in technology. It seems to have failed to protect its own digital infrastructure and the top levels of its government. That's not all. America not only failed to prevent the attack, it also failed to detect it. The cyber attack was not discovered by government officials in the US. It was identified by a private firm. FireEye, a private cybersecurity firm, was the first to raise the red flag because this company too was breached. And this is a very important company. A report describes FireEye as the first call for government agencies and companies around the world when they fear they have been attacked. Now, FireEye itself was breached. This was the level of sophistication of this attack. The goal of the hackers seems to have been espionage. The United States has not officially blamed Russia yet, but investigators have found Russian fingerprints all over the breach. Moscow, as always, is rejecting the charge. Cyber tools that have never been seen before were used in this attack, and this raises concerns about the extent and depth of the hacking. Because if they were able to go undetected for months, they could have potentially used their access to shut down systems, to corrupt, even destroy data. Well, there's no evidence that something like this happened. A breach of this nature does leave America's national security infrastructure exposed. And it looks like the Biden administration will have its hands full with so much happening. At home, America is under a cyber attack. Abroad, tensions are escalating. There are crucial developments taking place. Iran, for one, has begun building an underground nuclear facility. Satellite pictures have come out. These are bound to catch the attention of Washington. Our next report tells you more about what's happening in Iran.
Is Iran building an underground nuclear plant? Satellites hovering over Fordo, the highly sensitive Iranian nuclear site, have picked up some clues. From August to November, a lot seems to have changed on the ground. There has been activity at the site. In September, Iran started to increase uranium enrichment at Fordo. A direct response to US President Donald Trump's decision to walk out of the nuclear deal. Then came a photograph on the 11th of December. It shows the Iranian government has dug a foundation for a building with dozens of pillars. Why is Iran constructing now? It knows the moves will make its neighbors nervous. By building the Fordo facility, Tehran is sending out a message. It has the money, the resources and the talent to keep its nuclear program going. It is also posturing to resume talks with America once Biden takes charge. And it is telling the world that the killing of its top scientist hasn't hurt its program. The recent assassination of Iranian scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was seen as a blow to the country's nuclear ambitions. Fakhrizadeh was involved in the most crucial aspects of the program. In the wake of his death, Iran has made sure that its uranium stockpile continues to grow. The photographs from Fordo come just before a foreign ministers' meeting on Monday, where plans for a joint US-Iran recommitment to the nuclear deal are up for discussion. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani says Tehran is ready to return to its nuclear commitments.
At any moment, as soon as the 5+1 or the 4+1 return to all their commitments, we will also return to all the commitments we have made. I've already said, it doesn't take time, it's just a question of will. The money is there and it is ready. There is the will, the decision is made, the order has been given. However, the United States is standing in the way.
The incoming US President, Joe Biden, has already expressed his intention to re-enter the nuclear deal with Iran, but he has demands of his own. Reportedly, Biden wants to extend the duration of certain restrictions on materials used to make a nuclear bomb. Tehran can also be asked to curb the activities of its proxies in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria and Yemen. The chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency has endorsed the idea of a new deal.
I cannot imagine that they are going simply to say we are back to square one, because square one is no longer there. There is more material. I've been reporting about this. There is more activity, there are more centrifuges and more are being announced. So what happens with all this? This is the question for them at the political level to decide, and then we can help.
The days of Trump's maximum pressure policy on Iran are over. The Biden administration is keen to talk, but Tehran is hedging its bets. With construction at its underground nuclear plant, Iran wants to gain some negotiating power before starting a dialogue with Biden. Bureau Report, World is One.
Islamabad's injustices in Balochistan are well documented. But with the onset of CPEC projects in the region, in fact, the human rights violations have only risen. Thousands of Baloch people have disappeared for opposing Chinese investments on their land. Balochistan, the land of the Baloch, has turned into the land of the disappeared.
Situated in Pakistan's southwest is Balochistan, the land of the Baloch people. It is the largest and most resource-rich province of Pakistan. It is also the battleground for an independence movement for over 60 years. A movement that has pushed the Baloch people into a cauldron of human rights abuses. More than 5,000 people have gone missing in Balochistan. This includes the brother of Abdul Hamid Baloch, a 35-year-old factory guard who disappeared in July this year. All Abdul has left are photographs that show Pakistan authorities taking his brother away. His mother has stopped speaking.
अगर किसी ने जुल्म किया तो उसको सजा दे दो, लेकिन हमारी माँ की क्या कसूर है, मेरी वालिदा की क्या कसूर है, उसको किस चीज़ की सजा दी जा रही। वो दिन रात अपने बच्चे के लिए रोते रोते अब उनकी हालत ऐसी होगी, वो बोलना उसने छोड़ दी।
Abdul lives in the fear that he would be next. He hesitates in even talking about his plight, scared that he too might be picked up and dumped after being killed.
मतलब बर्बादी है तो मतलब कुछ भी हम क्या बयान नहीं कर सकते कि हमारे बलूचिस्तान में जो हमारे साथ जो हो रहा है पता नहीं क्यों हो रहा है क्यों कर रहे हैं ये नहीं पता उनको ही पता होगा लेकिन बर्बादी जैसी है अब तो हम लोग इतने ही डरते हैं कि अगर मैं बोल रहा हूँ बर्बादी है तो उनको पता चल जाए कि ये कह रहे हैं कि बलूचिस्तान में बर्बादी तो पता नहीं मुझे भी उठा के ले जाएं मार के फेंक दें इस तरह की
27-year-old Hani Baloch never thought of herself as a dissident. But in May this year, just weeks before her wedding, Hani and her fiancé Naseem were picked up by Pakistani officials. The couple was accused of being part of a pro-independence terror outfit. They were tortured, electrocuted and hit with rifle butts.
टॉर्चर करते थे हमें चेयर पे बिठा के करंट भी मारते थे और मेरे पैर को जो मेरे सीधा पैर है इसे बंदूक के बाट से मारता था अभी भी मैं थोड़ी ज्यादा चलूं तो मुझे तकलीफ होती है और मेरे सर पे भी बंदूक का बाट मारा था इसमें भी 6 टांके आए हुए हैं
Hani Baloch was released after 3 months, but there's no word on her fiancé.
जितने लोग भी लापता किए गए हैं उन्हें बाजियाब करें अगर वो मुजरिम है तो कानून आपके अपने हैं अदालतें जेल आपके अपने हैं आप लाएं हमारे वकील खड़े होंगे अगर जुर्म उन पर साबित हुआ आप उन्हें जो भी सजा रियासत का वो कानून देगी हमें मंजूर है लेकिन इस तरह पाबंद सलासर रखना में मंजूर नहीं है
Thousands more have disappeared this year. The conflict intensified due to the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Billions of dollars of Chinese money is flowing into the region. But none of it is for the Baloch people. The jobs go to outsiders. The locals are pushed further into the margins.
CPEC जो है उसने और उस पर जलती का तेल का काम किया क्योंकि उसमें कोई भी हिस्सा बलूचिस्तान को नहीं दिया जा रहा इवन लेबर जो है वो पंजाब से लाई जा रही है या चाइनीज़ लेबर आके काम कर रही है बलूच लेबर जो है उन पर भरोसा नहीं किया जा रहा उनको वहाँ पर काम नहीं दिया जा रहा तो इससे और ज़्यादा नफरत फैल रही है
These people are fighting for the sovereignty of their land. In 2019, Baloch rebels stormed a luxury hotel overlooking a flagship CPEC project in Gwadar. And in June this year, Baloch insurgents targeted the Pakistani Stock Exchange, which is partly owned by Chinese companies. The attacks were claimed by the Balochistan Liberation Army, but it is the innocent civilians who have suffered the most. They get picked up by authorities on the slightest of doubt. Islamabad has unleashed a new wave of injustices to protect its business interests with China. It has turned Balochistan into the land of the disappeared. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Once bitten, twice shy. This has been the story of Pakistan since India carried out the first surgical strikes 4 years back. Indian forces struck terror launch pads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. 4 years on, Islamabad seems to be still living in that fear that another strike is about to take place. And such is the fear that Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Pakistan's foreign minister, could not stop himself from voicing his concerns during his ongoing tour to the UAE. At a press conference held in Abu Dhabi, Mr. Qureshi, who is an acute case of foot and mouth, had this to say.
I have learned through our intelligence sources, and they have picked up this information that India is planning a surgical strike against Pakistan. This is a serious development, and I also have knowledge that they have tried to seek tacit approval from important players who they consider to be their partners.
You heard that. India is trying to seek approval from important players who they consider to be their partners. You wonder who these important players come partners are. Last we checked, India was set to become a major security partner of Saudi Arabia. The Indian Army Chief, General M.M. Naravne, even travelled to Saudi Arabia and the UAE earlier this month. Which important players, then, is Mr. Qureshi referring to? And what exactly is he doing in the Emirates? Is this in response to the Indian Army Chief's visit? It certainly seems to be, because we look at the developments and we see the pattern. Mr. Qureshi met UAE's Foreign Minister on Thursday, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan. No prizes for guessing what he was talking about. Kashmir. Reports say Qureshi once again peddled lies about the human rights situation in Kashmir. If only Pakistan had put such effort into improving diplomatic ties, the UAE would not have banned visas to Pakistanis. You may have heard about this. The Emirates has halted issuance of new visas to Pakistani citizens over security concerns. This is a massive setback for Pakistan's already struggling economy. Foreign remittances from expats in the UAE are lifesavers for Islamabad. The Sheikhdom has cut that lifeline. The visa issue is yet to be resolved. How could it be when all the Pakistan foreign minister talks about is Kashmir and surgical strikes? Meanwhile, back in Pakistan, Imran Khan is now cracking down on the Pashtuns. The Peshawar police has arrested Muhammad Ali Wazir and several other leaders of the Pashtun Tehfuz movement. They have been accused of a severe criminal offence. What was their offence? Making derogatory statements against the Pakistan government. This is what it has come down to. An elected representative arrested for criticising his government. I'll wrap the story with a statement by Maryam Nawaz on the state of affairs in Pakistan.
देखिए, मैं इसकी भरपूर मजम्मत करती हूँ और मैं ये समझती हूँ कि अगर आपके मुल्क में इस किस्म की तहरीकों को अगर आपने अपने साथ ना मिलाया, उनको कौमी धारे से ना जोड़ा, आपने उनको एक पनपने के लिए छोड़ दिया, तो इससे आपकी फेडरेशन जो है वो वीक होगी, इससे स्टेट की रिट भी वीक होगी, इससे पाकिस्तान की जो सॉलिडारिटी है, पाकिस्तान की जो एक यूनिटी है, उसके अंदर दरार आएगी और ये कोई किसी भी चीज के साथ डील करने का कोई अकलमंदाना या दानिशमंदाना तरीका नहीं है.
Christmas is barely a week away, but Europe will not be able to celebrate it like they used to thanks to the Wuhan virus. There's a second wave of cases. Europe is locking down again, but the pandemic has not dampened the spirits of people. They're buying Christmas trees. There's a major spike, in fact, in first-time buyers as many gear up for celebrations at home.
Perhaps it's because people are spending more time at home than ever before. Or perhaps it's because we could all use a little extra cheer this holiday season. Regardless of the reason, Christmas trees are selling out much earlier and much faster than usual this year. And in London, Christmas trees and decorations dotting the city are bringing sparkle despite the near-empty streets. Businesses across the capital are suffering due to the coronavirus restrictions. But British Christmas tree growers say business is booming this year. There's even been an increase in first-time Christmas tree buyers.
We do know our members have been busier than ever, and there's people buying trees from each other to make sure we've got enough trees in the right place to keep everybody happy. And they are saying what's quite interesting is that most members are saying they've got a lot of new people who've never bought a real tree before. I think they want an authentic Christmas, a real Christmas. It's the smell, the decorating.
Christmas tree sellers are reporting a big season this year. The season started early and has continued to accelerate into the early part of December. Even online sale of the trees has received a boost in 2020.
It's actually too soon to say something like that for stores. We can say that we have seen at least a 5% increase in our online sales, for sure, residential sales. And in stores, yes, people are coming in. Our last weekend was amazing. We were quite surprised by the footfall that came in and bought trees.
Virus cases in the UK began to climb after lockdown measures were eased and people started to return to offices, schools, universities and social life. But London is currently under England's highest tier of COVID-19 restrictions, which means pubs and restaurants will be closed except for takeaway and delivery. In an unprecedented year that has largely limited outdoor activities, a Christmas tree as a centerpiece in the home is even more significant this year. Christmas 2020 is shaping up to be a festive season unlike any other.
It's the first time I've bought a Christmas tree because of what's going on this year with the pandemic, and I just think we need to make it extra special this year.
Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Many of you must be following the India-Australia Test series, and most of you must have heard about it. There's something from the ongoing Test match that I want to talk to you about. It's called casual racism, and it's not okay, whether online, on air, on the cricket pitch, or in the commentary box. Casual racism is not okay, and it is not funny, especially when it comes from a celebrated cricketer. On day one of the Adelaide Test, Australian cricketer Shane Warne was in the commentary box. He started a discussion with his fellow commentators about how Cheteshwar is not an easy name to pronounce. Shane Warne was referring to Cheteshwar Pujara. The discussion went to how Pujara was called Steve during his county cricket stint with Yorkshire. Why Steve? In 2018, Pujara had said his teammates in Yorkshire would call him Steve because his name was too difficult to pronounce, or so they said. Turns out there's more to this story. Recently, former Yorkshire captain Azim Rafiq filed a legal complaint against his team for racism. A former employee of this club said the club would call every person of colour Steve, and that the club was guilty of institutional racism. Cheteshwar Pujara's name is not difficult. He was just a victim of racism, and that's the story of the name Steve. And it should tell you that Shane Warne's Steve joke was not funny, it was casual racism. And you know what? Even if the name Cheteshwar is tough for some, as a professional, you're supposed to know how to pronounce it, or at least try to make an effort to come the closest you can to the correct pronunciation. The commentary box, by the way, has no room for disrespect, shouldn't have room for disrespect and systemic racism. We'll leave you with that thought and wrap this show. We're leaving you as always with Gravitas images. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday.